So what is it really that makes relationships whole? What would you say? What makes a relationship good based on your experience? Communication, trust, caring. Here's what some of the research shows. David Olson looked at a few thousand couples. 10 is the number in my mind, if I'm correct. Happy couples, and found that these were the components. They communicated, they had flexibility, couple closeness, personality compatibility, and conflict resolution. How many of those are skills and what one isn't? Well, the ones that are in white here are all the skills that can be taught. Personality compatibility is not a skill. You know, you just have it or you don't have it. And here I think is interestingly where eHarmony does something of value, because they work at, perhaps more effectively than any other commercially available organization that's widespread and available, they work at identifying people of similar interests and personality compatibility. And the research shows that the more similar you are, the easier it is for you to bond. And the more dissimilar, the greater the distance will be in the relationship. I'm not going to detail that because you probably understand that as well as I do. But what we have in Essential Disciplines is what I think is the best research in the world that gives you a handle to understand and decode personality compatibility, as well as a means to address the other skills. Extension Relationship and Marriage Education Network. And they've been working for several years on a project of identifying what does all the research say that makes good relationships. And in a few words, it's choose, care, manage, share, know, care for self, and connect to other people. And I particularly like their list for one unique reason. They're about the only group that has definitively said somebody has to choose to do something good for there to be. To me, it's speaking about character. You know, they recognize that somebody has to. You can't just teach interactive skills. Somebody has to say, okay, I commit to trying to do this different. Somebody has to make that choice. So I really value and appreciate that perspective. Recent research was done by Hawkins et al. And the question was, is marriage, relationship, and education effective? And the conclusion was yes, that it is. What they do is they've proven after looking at 197 different studies that that marriage, relationship, and education is successful at creating relationship satisfaction and quality. And secondly, it enhances communication. But as they looked at the research, they had some critiques of it. And the one in particular that I want to focus on is they said the research that's out there about relationships doesn't adequately address the value of virtues, as they called it. Now, to me, I translate that into saying the choice to be a person of character. And so the first time I've ever heard in our professional arena, it actually happened at Smart Marriage. This theme was picked up on by Scott Stanley, who is, again, a great researcher. Howard Markman and Scott Stanley, who developed PrEP. And Scott Stanley said at one of our plenary presentations with a couple thousand people that research is now emerging that says one of the most important qualities for couples to have is sacrifice. And that actually sacrifice yields better results than exchanges. You know, like a lot of early counseling kind of focused on, well, I'll do this for you if you do that for me. It's kind of a negotiation that you do between two people. A negotiation and a commitment to do these things is not as inspiring as sacrifice. When my wife stays up late doing something for me, or is tired but still puts herself out for me, whatever way that might be, you can use your imagination. When those kinds of things happen, it inspires me to give more to the relationship. And sacrifice causes a tighter bond than simple exchanges. And so the point I want you to see through this is that this is really talking about what I refer to as character. So I think the research is identifying one of the elements of character, which is sacrifice. But I think there's a whole field of dimensions which we really address in an informed and sophisticated way in Essential Disciplines. So this is my kind of overview of the macro components. This is Steve Judith's simplification of the research, that we need skills like communication and so forth. Secondly, what we need is a methodology to understand similarity and dissimilarity, a means to address personality compatibility and incompatibility. And then lastly, it's kind of a spiritual decision about the idea of character and the choice, such as virtues and sacrifice. And what Essential Disciplines does is it integrates all three of these dimensions: skills, similarity, dissimilarity, and it really challenges the individual to make a choice. So here we have the 5 dimensions of Essential Disciplines. So let's unpack this just a little bit more in the 15 or so minutes we have remaining. And I want you to see that here we have these 5 dimensions. And the first 3, refine, share, and reconcile, build a foundation of security within within a couple, or within a business within the organization. And until those things are until people choose to be a person of character, communicate with one another effectively, and resolve conflicts, it's not a safe place. And then once that foundation is established, you can move on into significance. One day I was talking to Kelly Monroe, who was for several years the chaplain of Harvard, and she said that reminded her of these 3 words: being, belonging, and becoming. Who you are as an individual, to communicate with another person and resolve conflicts, and lets you belong to one another. And then the other 2 enable you to really become all that you're able to become.